Indeed, we are very, very concerned about the problem. We literally get thousands of reports every single year about the neglect of children. And what we struggle to achieve is services for these children, and services that work with restoring the relationship between the parents or caregivers of these children and the children themselves. And I think it's reflective of a number of problems that we encounter in society at the moment. And one of the things that really worries me is that by the time the police are involved, it's usually too late. It's like closing the door after the horse is bolted, so to speak. We really need to be doing more in the way of prevention.
Now, the 16 Days of Activism campaign that aims to put a stop to violence against women and children kicked off on Monday. Now, according to the non-government organisation Women and Men Against Child Abuse, this 16 Days campaign, well, has been marred by growing incidents of violence against women and children. In studio with us today, we have the director, Miranda Jordan-Friedmann. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben. Thank you very much for having us.
Before I get into the bigger problems that's facing the youth in South Africa, I read a report that says South Africa has the highest instance of violence against children in the world. Is that accurate, and then why?
Well, I think if we look at the amount of people in South Africa, I think if we look at countries like America, where you have an average of about 3 million children abused every year, but there we have a huge population and much bigger. So perhaps looking at the size of our population compared to the amount of children that are abused every year, we could probably be among one of the highest, and that's what I'd say to you. But I really think what we need to look at, and I think 16 Days of Activism gives us an opportunity, and many other organizations opportunity, to actually review the year and highlight what we need to highlight. And, you know, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I sometimes feel very repetitive and talking again about the things that need to be done by government. You know, and hopefully by the time we talk again, we'll see some changes.
So what you're saying is that every year we have this 16 days talk shop, and you believe no action is really put into place to deal with the issues?
Well, I think we need to see a better plan of action from government. I think we see a few pockets of things happening. For instance, we see now that our specialised courts are coming back. But why were they stopped even? You know, we need to look at that. And that is a positive. We see now that our DNA bill has reached Parliament, but we're still waiting for President Zuma to sign it. These are both crucial things when one looks at the criminal process and one looks at criminal cases of child abuse. But I think we also need to look at prevention programs, and we also need to look at what's happening with our schools and our Department of Education. So although we welcome the fact that now education has been put on the top of the list as far as the ANC is concerned, as far as government is concerned, but we need to see this rolling out, which means we want to see textbooks delivered on time. We had this problem last year with Limpopo. We had this in various schools in the Eastern Cape this year. We need to see the right textbooks are given. And we also need to see that posts that were abolished are still not being paid for. I'm not sure if you're aware, but 2.3 billion rand was paid to posts that had been abolished. But there are many schools that are without teachers. So I think we need a lot of accountability, and we need to see some sort of performance, sort of appraisal or accountability when it comes to the Department of Education.
I want to move back to the focus, that is abuse against women and children. During this period, there's always horrific cases of abuse. But what are the wider issues facing children in this country?
Well, I'd like to go back to something that Joan said, and I think we need to look at service providers. Our organisation has 4 clinics. We are one organisation only based in Gauteng. We do not service rural areas. There is a massive shortage of proper service deliveries. We just look at what happened in Diepsloot recently. What was there? Was there a clinic or a specialised service for abused children? No, there is not. In fact, there is very little as far as services for human beings, and let alone children. Places of safety, creches. These are the places that would keep children safe during the day while their parents are out working. Yeah. And maybe we would have protected 1 or 2 of those children that were so devastatingly abducted and raped and murdered.
These cases that are reported, then you believe that this is only the tip of the iceberg and there's a lot of other abuse that goes on unattended?
Yes, and especially when we look at cases of incest. It's normally intrafamilial, it's within the family, the father is the breadwinner. It is very, very difficult. A child often then realizes that if they do report and they do come forward, in fact, they are responsible for breaking up their whole family. That is the way they feel. They feel that their whole lives are going to be changed after this. And I think we need to be aware that these are probably some of the most difficult cases to come forward, and there are very many. Particularly in our Boksburg clinic on the East Rand area, we're seeing an increase in the amount of incest cases. The good thing is they are coming forward, sometimes later, but when I look back at 15 years ago, very, very few. Sometimes people would only come when they were already adults and told us what had happened to them as children.
Finally, just tell us what people should be looking at from your organisation over the next couple of weeks with this campaign, and then maybe how they can get involved and in contact with you guys.
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing is we are heading up to Christmas. We are heading up to holidays. Children are often in places where they're alone. Their parents are still working. I think we really need to ask parents, where possible, please, to make sure that they perhaps can still stay in a creche until your work finishes. We also need for parents to watch out about issues of alcoholism. If you feel your children are around people, that are drinking, and that to remove them away from that. And I think the most important thing is to look at your child's behaviour. And if that starts changing or anything, so a child that was a quiet child becomes aggressive, or an outward child becomes withdrawn, I think those are signs to get some advice.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Miranda Jordan-Friedmann, who's the Director of Women and Men Against Child Abuse.
Thank you very much, Evan.
Thank you again.